This is our final session of the Community Cat Programming series. Throughout this series, we've been exploring a lot of different topics throughout Community Cat Programming, conversions with shelter leaders, and we're even having a panel discussion today. So we will be featuring some lovely speakers. We have Leah Long, Peyton Corley, John Graves, and Tyler Moore, which you may all recognize from our previous 2 sessions. Before I hand everything over and begin the panel discussion, I just want to remind everyone that we will stay muted today, but please feel free to enter your questions into the Q&A box that's at the bottom of your screen. We would love to hear from you, hear any questions you have about Community Cat Programming, and we may be able to answer them live. Most likely we will be able to. And this session will be recorded as usual. It's going to be uploaded to our network partner YouTube channel. So we will get a link for that in the email that we'll send out later today. I'm going to go ahead and let our panelists start introducing themselves. I'll start with a little introduction on who I am since I'll lead the panel, but my name is Erica. I am a strategist here on our East Regional team at Best Friends Animal Society. And I work with shelters one-on-one and also offer educational opportunities like this. So Leah, I will pass it to you first to introduce yourself.
Amazing. Hello, everyone. My name is Leah Long. I am the South Central Regional Manager here at Best Friends. I help shelters across the South Central region implement or expand upon life-saving programs, and I have been doing helping shelters with implementing community cat programs in particular for over a decade now. So I am happy to be here talking to you all about my favorite subject, cats. I will go ahead and pass it on to Peyton.
Thanks, Leah. My name's Peyton. I'm the Executive Director at Hill Country Humane Society. We're in Buchanan Dam, servicing shelter for Burnett and Llano counties, plus 8 cities. We have been really growing our CCP programming the past couple years, and I'm excited to talk about what we've done.
John, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm John Graves. I'm a East Regional strategist focused on my home state of North Carolina and South Carolina. And I have been with Best Friends for about 5 years, but I've been in North Carolina professional animal welfare since 2006, including animal control and direct shelter operations. And then I'll kick it over to the Tyler Moore.
Hi, I'm Tyler Moore. I'm the shelter manager for Onslow County Animal Services. I've been in animal welfare since 2016, and I help bring CCP to Onslow County.
Well, thank you so much, panelists. I appreciate you joining us again today. And I'll go ahead and kick this off with our first question. So when an organization is first starting with community cat programming, what do you think that first step should be as they dive in? What is a good place to start?
Yeah, so I think part of the first step is assessing your current infrastructure barriers and resources to beginning a community cat program, because there's a lot of different things that go into it. There's buy-in from staff, policymakers, your community. There's surgery capacity, supplies, and just whether or not you need to update your ordinances and policies. And so getting a good overview of what you already have in place to get started versus what you need to have in place is a good point to start to create a plan. What I would say is the most important out of everything I just stated is that staff buy-in piece, because that really is the foundation of the program that you'll be building.
Yeah, thank you so
And
much.
I would add, we have this, we shared it in the last presentation too, for reference, there's like a 30, 60, 90 that we've used with some of our shelters that's been really successful, and then helping them kind of establish those first steps. Everything Leah said, of course. And then I would also, one thing to be considering too is who your partners are going to be in this, and who's going to be taking on what pieces of the program. And how you plan on working together. So when I look at like basically these 4 cornerstones and what all these pieces mean to these cornerstones, and identifying those before getting kickoff. But I will we don't have this necessarily on there, but like Leah's 100% right. Getting staff buy-in and getting buy-in from your municipal leaders as well is really one of the first steps to getting this off the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that 60 or 30, 60, 90, we'll definitely have as a resource in our Trello board as well to take a look at. Yeah, that was really great from last week's presentation. Tyler, what did it look like when you were working alongside John starting the CCP? What were some of those first steps?
For us, it really was determining what the buy-in was going to be. I was kind of the only person that was familiar with the CCPs. When I first came here, they were still doing the catch and kill method, and it was kind of draining on everybody. So, basically I had to find one person that I could talk into it and then go from there. And having John kind of in the corner along with Anna was really integral into being able to have those discussions on a consistent basis and continue to push through the pushback that I was getting. We were really lucky too. We had a lot of staff overchange after I came through. I wouldn't say it was me, but we had some differencing of staff overchanges occur. I think also what just kind of was like laying the foundation for the CCP to really come into play. So like while I was doing the staff buy-in, on the same token, we were having people move in and out of positions too. So
And I would
Yeah.
say that even one step back too is there was an organization called Pause for Purpose that was started doing CCP in Onslow County, and it's one of those people that are just really professional, really well connected, and really good at having these political conversations, that can be challenging sometimes for shelter leadership. They can kind of be a voice for you. And so Susan was starting to do that, and then also it provided some real proving ground opportunities, right, for us to be able to go in and say, hey, look, you were getting calls from this person. Susan went in and resolved this issue, and this is why you're not actually hearing back from them, even though they've been calling you forever and ever about these cat issues. So
yeah, I'll also step off of that too, is that because she was doing TNR for us, she was giving me data that I could use, right? So I actually took the data from her first year of TNR and compared it to our intakes. And basically I said before TNR, these are the numbers. All of our cat intakes are steadily like there. They're not changing. It's basically a flat line of intakes. And then the first year of TNR, we actually saw the first decline of our cat intakes and saw the actual change from her doing TNR. And I think that was the real moment whenever I did that at our advisory board. I think that was our real moment with our community, that they actually was like, oh, okay, this does work, right? And so it was the same thing for some of the locals, like the staff members. It was just showing them the data that we had and showing them like, it does work. Here's the proof.
Yeah, data is so important for these conversations, and Leah's definitely one of the advocates for that, right? But Peyton, I want to kind of pass it to you a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit more about how your first steps work when you start working with counties and having those conversations and buy-in?
Yeah, so my situation was kind of similar to Tyler's. We were established in 1989, and for almost 25 years, we were promoting like trapping and killing essentially. So coming in had a lot to revamp, and first and foremost was educating staff. Fortunately, staff, most staff, I would hope most of your staff doesn't want to kill cats for space just because. So it was pretty easy and almost inspiring to educate staff on that. We did some trainings with Leah that were really beneficial. I think it really helped staff, like hearing other organizations are doing it and it's working. And then going from there, we kind of had to zoom in to each county and each city because we historically were telling them the wrong thing. So we had to come back and say, wait, this isn't working. Look at our numbers. It's clear. And then just start small, so go from city to city, county to county, identify your stakeholders, Educating the ECOs too is also a really, really big part of it, because you want to make sure everybody's voicing the same thing. Little graphics, like handouts, were really huge for us. It was really helpful for staff when they got a complaint, calling to just look at a form, talk about the vacuum effect, the benefits, and most importantly to the stakeholders, explain that this is not creating more work or more expenditures for you. If anything, it is absolutely definitely saving both. So start small, but education absolutely is the first step for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Education is such an important part of this piece, staff and community wise. So I appreciate you sharing that. And if anyone wants to share in the chat as well, some of the conversations that they've had for staff buy-in or county buy-in, let us know. Or if you have any questions about how you can handle those conversations, we have some great experts here who have been doing it. But I'll go ahead and ask another question about, we'll dive into data, Leah. Tyler talked about how important data was when they started their CCP. So can you expand a little bit more about why it's so important that an organization uses data when starting their CCP and monitoring it as well?
Yeah, so there are just so many ways to utilize data when it comes to community CAP programming. And I feel like Tyler really exemplified one of the ways. We want to be able to demonstrate impactful change from the start of the program, so that we can continue on with the program and continue to receive funding. I've even utilized data where like 6 months in, we're able to show such a reduction in non-life outcomes for cats that a shelter is able to get a position put in place for a community cat program coordinator utilizing that data. So for one thing, we want to be able to show that before and after, because we know that data, one paired with storytelling, can have impactful changes when it comes to updating ordinances, budgets, continuing that pilot program into making it long-standing policy. But there's some other ways that we can utilize it too. If you already have a CCP program in place, but there's something like with your numbers, they're not where they want it, where you would like it to be for cats. I'm going to be taking a look at my intake data for stray cats. I'm going to be seeing what's coming in. Is it adults? Is it kittens? Where are they coming in from? Am I getting reoccurring intakes from the same locations? And I'm going to be looking at my outcomes, seeing what's happening with euthanasia, died in care. What are the reasons for euthanasia? And if I'm seeing certain trends within that, like maybe I'm seeing a lot of stray adults come in and receive euthanasias around upper respiratory infection. That's usually a sign to me that there's something going on with eligibility that needs to be looked at and potentially tweaked. So data can be really useful for just having an objective view on what might need tweaking. And lastly, it's really helpful for targeting for TNVR, because we want our team, if we're doing a TNVR program in addition to SNVR or just doing TNVR, we want to make sure that it's highly targeted so that it impacts our intake and we see that go down over time. And so that looks like targeting based off of data from where cats are coming in from and complaints are coming in from historically. So lots of different ways.
Yeah, I'll pile on that too. Like heat mapping can really help you prioritize these specific areas, and there's a lot of tools now out there, for mapping out these priority areas where your complaints are coming in from, where your intake is coming in from, and you can heat map them all these different colors and really code where this is. So that, again, you're making sure you're prioritizing your areas and not just stretching yourself too far to the point where you're really not impacting your shelter numbers. So. Yeah.
Yeah, could you expand a little bit more on the targeted TNVR piece as well? I think it could be really important to highlight what that looks like to target those communities instead of why is it important that we're targeting just singular colonies versus all?
Yeah. There's a lot of reason too. I mean, for me, a lot of what I look at from an animal control aspect and from the position of making sure you are appeasing your municipal leaders and they're not getting phone calls is that you're prioritizing those complaint calls, right? You're prioritizing what's going to get elevated, because that's also what will sync a program the quickest. if the commissioners, you can throw them all the data in the world. If they're still getting phone calls and they feel like it's not working, they're oftentimes going to work against it, right? You can get people that can be really loud in opposition of this, so you need to be able to make sure you're able to quell those as much as possible. And yeah, like they're saying it's a lot more efficient, obviously, too, right? To look at a small area and really prioritize that. It helps your storytelling, it helps your data. And again, it helps you to go back and prioritize, like, this is a specific area, right? Like, this is where I'm getting the majority of my cats from, this street, this area, this zip code, whatever it might be. The smaller and you can target, the better. But that will impact your shelter intake. That will impact your your complaint calls. And you'll start driving these things down faster. I'm a huge fan of raising complaint areas up to the top to keep them from getting elevated and resolve them as quickly as possible, and having a method for doing so.
And to kind of add to that, historically, shelters used like they would have these programs for years, but they wouldn't see any impact on like their intake numbers. They would continue to trend the same, despite there being a lot of evidence to show that a program, having this program in place, can cause a decrease in intakes. And usually that's because there is a lack of targeting happening. So their scope is too big. It's like an entire city, or even zip codes, honestly, can be too big.
Yeah,
We really want to
much.
focus in on those specific addresses, where we are getting cats from, where we're getting complaints from, and making sure we're fixing enough of that community of cats so that that population doesn't rebound within the next breeding cycle. And so that focus piece is what helps us bring down intake over time.
The unfortunate thing is there's always going to be this massive need, right? There's always going to be people, and the people that are calling you that want the help, helping them help the cats, and then you're also gives you a bigger window to prioritize your work into like, alleviating these nuisance calls, if that makes sense, right? So like the people that want the help are always going to do the extra mile. Sometimes making sure you're going the extra mile for the people that don't want the help is going to help really drive down those complaint calls and move your program forward, rather than this whack-a-mole thing, unfortunately, where we're just kind of like going and hitting one or two cats here and there. Really prioritizing these neighborhoods and these complaint areas. And also, I mean, I'll look at, like, is this near a nature preserve? Is this near a school? Like, is there a real reason why we need to elevate this, getting this colony into a manageable number faster, right? Like, we out here in Dare County, where I am, when we first started this, we have a lot of like state properties, and we have protected coastlines and things like that. So we have to really look at how far away we are from those areas as well, to make sure that we are coexisting with wildlife as peacefully as we possibly can.
I think it really helps as well to explain to stakeholders that it actually works. Like, for instance, a couple of our cities, we started in the high complaint areas, targeted that area. We're able to fix all of those cats, and then the nuisance calls stopped. So then we can go to the council, ACO, the police department, and say, hey, it works. Stand by us, stand with us, and let's make this an effect in the entire city.
I'll also piggyback on that one too, because we had the same thing where anytime a complaint came to the commissioners for us, who are the people that, kind of lets us do the things that we do, we put those on the priority list, and we fixed a lot of those complaints. And so the buy-in that we found from them was actually not getting the phone calls anymore. Basically, once we started the CCP, the phone calls dramatically dropped, but there's still people like popping up every so often. So now that we've actually like completed those people, all the commissioners are all for it, except for maybe like one or two, which is just from changeover, that aren't educated, haven't been with this program as long as it's been up for us.
Yeah. No, that's really, really important. And I think it's such a testament to the power of CCP that those complaint mitigation that it's working, right? How did you support some of that complaint mitigation with like external materials, like community engagement, or handouts and things like that, specifically Peyton and Tyler. How were you giving some of that education?
Yeah, so for us, I think explaining to them the vacuum effect, explaining to them trap and removal has been tried out here for decades. It's obviously not working, and explaining to them, like even fixing your colony, the colony that's causing nuisance behaviors on your property, whatever it is going to keep new ones from coming in that are spraying, fighting, galling, the highest things on the list for complaints. And people, when you explain it to them, go about it nicely, a lot of times they'll understand it, and you'll learn that the vast majority of people do care about the cats. They don't want the cats just trapped and killed. But like for us, that's what even we, the Humane Society, we're telling people to do forever. And I remember at first bringing up like TNR to some community members. They're like, what's that? And now it's just common knowledge because people are seeing that it works. Also, deterrents are a great thing just to offer. And I know Leah has a bunch of links and resources on that, for like if they're using the bathroom in their garden, there's little things you can put on that, on the fence, to keep them out and deter them. But for sure, biggest thing is explaining that if you're removing them, they're going to come back and rebound, and there's going to be even more.
Yeah, I agree. That's basically the biggest piece to us. We also did a secondary point to that for us is that, and I think it kind of got the information across a little bit faster. When we went live with our CCP, we did tell them, you know, we are not taking in ferals because they do belong to the community and somebody's caring for them. And kind of having that conversation, that allowed them to finally have like that, whoa, what's going on? And then we can give the education. So a lot of people started listening to that for us. And we really don't have much of a pushback anymore. I think the pushback lasted for like a couple months, and then everyone's now on board and moving forward with it. So
Yeah, that's excellent.
Well, I'm like Onzo's got a big board in their lobby too that talks like a lot about CCP, which is especially fun for me because I'm like the first time I walked into that shelter as a representative for Best Friends, the acting manager out of nowhere was like, CCP is not going to work here. And I was like, hi, it's really nice to meet you. Yeah. And now this has a really thriving and wonderful program and their community has fully embraced it. You all, I think, also did a couple of town halls, like in partnership with them to really educate the community and bring them along. So I think, yeah, just any way you can engage your community. We've done handouts and things like that. For me, like site evaluations has always been one of the biggest, to go out and evaluate people's properties for nuisance mitigation and have these conversations and show them how engaged you are in actually solving this problem, right? Because not even from a life-saving standpoint, but from a solving the community's issues standpoint. That's always been a big driver for me. What we're doing is not working. Let's find something that actually is working and let's solve your problem today.
Yeah, adding on to that, I definitely agree with going out in the field and talking to people. I know me and some of my team went out and we had like shelter gear on with logo, asking where community cats were, and they still were scared to tell us because they thought we were trying to remove them. Kind of a trick we learned is to show up with cat food in your hand, and it kind of shows them like, hey, we're here to help you. We're not here to take your cats. We support you. So it's a lot of gaining trust too, and it comes with
a lot of that. It's a lot of gaining trust, and I've talked about this in the last one a lot, and I'll reiterate it until I'm blue in the face. But like meeting people with their own resources goes a really long way. So meeting them with Alley Cat Allies, your best friends' resources, when you're in that trust building phase, can go a lot further than meeting them with something that says, Hill Country, SPCA, or whatever. If you have a long history, especially of trap and euthanize.
Mm-hmm.
And going back, one other thing I want to throw in here too is, I meant to talk about this in the last one, but if you're having trouble getting buy-in from your commissioners, or even getting your commissioners to like engage with your shelter or your council member or whatever it might be, one thing we recommend is inviting them, coming up with some kind of an award. And inviting them in with that award, right? So like if they've done something, animal related at all, and kind of building award off of that and making them awarding that to them, inviting them in for a photo op ball, gets them in the front door. Anything that you can do like that. We did our we got on a call a while ago with someone else who was just implementing this CCP, and they had just recently been awarded our No Kill Excellence Award. And as a round two of some community engagement, they invited their commissioner and their counselor, and has started developing a relationship kind of based off of that. But it doesn't have to be anything like that. It can be like cutest dog. Cutest dog in Hill Country County. I don't know where you're at, Peyton. Sorry, but in Onslow County, and inviting them in for that, or something like that they've done that has really helped drive that.
I will go ahead and ask this question from Alex. Does anyone have any ideas on getting donations for our city? Or our city contributes $3,000 per year. We usually end up picking up about 100 cats per year. It seems like it helps, just not enough. Okay, so I'm getting donations for specifically community cat TNR, I'm assuming as well.
I won't lie, it can be challenging at first. It really can. And a lot of times, my recommendation is, obviously there's grants out there to apply for. We have our No Kill Excellence and our Save Them All grants out right now. I definitely recommend putting in for that. And meeting with your regional strategist to kind of help you make your grant application as strong as possible. Then the other thing too is reaching out to your local community foundations, so your regional community foundations, and tying it in to a human need when you're looking at implementing new programming. But also just going out there and putting it out there and doing, some different kind of, GoFundMe kind of things or whatever it might be. And also talking to the businesses that are, having the most problems, like, hey, are you willing to put $25 towards this? Are you willing to do this or whatever towards it? And then the other thing is just partnering with another local group, especially if you're a municipality, to fundraise for this can go really long ways. Susan is at Pause for Purpose has done an amazing job with this, right? And just being as transparent as possible and putting the ask out there. The number one reason people don't donate is because they aren't asked. So that's definitely definitely a big contributor. And talking the human health angle too, right? Like the more healthy vaccinated cats we have in the community, the better it is, for a community. So, I would definitely we have really fantastic, some more than one fundraising modules on the network site. So if you're struggling, I would definitely start there and look at some of these fundraising modules, and they're going to go a little more in depth into how to improve your fundraising.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add to that because I agree with all of it. What we found, there's a recent study that shows that people care just as much about outdoor cats as they do their pets. And so definitely when we put the ask out there, people are willing to meet it. Community cats are an incredibly popular concept. Community cat programs are very favorable. National polls suggest that, as do regional ones. So I would definitely just start putting that idea out there. Something else I also look at when it comes to funding, less on the donation or grant fund, is also just doing cost analysis on your current operations. What a lot of shelters will find is that if they don't have a community cat program in place, or not a fully comprehensive one, what is often happening is that we're spending more on cost of care for those cats than would go towards the surgery funds. Because of every single day a cat is in my care, there is a cost associated with that. The supplies, staff time, animal control officers going out to the same location over and over again without there being a fully realized solution. That is staff time and resources. I know that the longer I have a cat in the care, the more likely it is to have an outbreak of upper respiratory infection or any other illness, which is going to add to cost of care. And so all of this adds up very quickly. So I would also just take a look at that, and there are cost analysis calculators online that can help you with figuring out what am I spending towards stray cats coming in right now? What does that compare towards the surgery packages in my community?
And that's one thing we you say too, going back to that is you were looking to solve not just for the cat you're having an issue with now, but all of the cats, right? Especially when you're talking about complaint-driven calls. The other thing I would say, last thing to say is sometimes paying it down to like the cost of one surgery, like, really bringing it down to something that's super digestible. And it's like, hey, this costs us $75. So for $75, you can save this cat's life and help us have a healthier animal community cat population.
Yeah, Tyler or Peyton, if you want to let us know as well, if you have any tips on donation. Specific. Yeah, go ahead.
Explaining it to councils, it really helps for me to explain it as it's an investment, because you're investing in targeting these colonies, decreasing the community cats, and there's going to be less intakes over time. So really, truly, you're not just paying for this one cat's surgery, but you're paying for also all of its kittens to come in and their kittens and down the road. So
yeah, absolutely.
I would say I kind of agree with everything that they've said. They've touched everything. Personally, for our location, our admin and our commissioners actually kind of heard the level of the amount of people that are requesting TNR for their outdoor cats in their like area, because we actually have a list that people can put on their information on there for a wait list to kind of get the assistance. And it's gone so much that they, instead of giving us just money to pay for surgeries, they are actually working towards creating a clinic for us to do TNR only. Like they're contracting these people for only TNR. There's nothing else that they're doing for the community to get the TNR list truly under control. So, I mean, it comes down to you have to get the buy-in first, and then the other pieces start to fall into play.
Yeah, and all this started with a $2,500 grant from best friends that went to Pause for Purpose, and we have built on this over the years. And so it started with a nonprofit that worked with the shelter that really proved that this works and showed that this worked, and now there's buy-in. So the buy-in is so high that they're actually like Tyler's saying, is getting a clinic going to really resolve this issue.
Yeah, that's really amazing. I'm so excited for y'all. That kind of goes into one of my questions, which is about having space for surgery, like having that capacity for spay neuter, and how you tackled that issue at first, specifically Tyler and Peyton, or if you have any advice, Leah and John, for shelters that may be struggling with that portion of community cat programming.
Well, it's not really a struggle, right? Everyone has full access to spay neuter at all times.
I would say for us, so our state, we're in North Carolina, they don't allow us to house unless they're like surrendered. They have to be housed for 72 hours no matter what. So that's just not a capacity that we could realistically do. The clinic will be operating separate from sheltering, so that's why it can kind of function that way. That law changed, but the way that we started it is truly the partnership that we had with Pause for Purpose. They looked through the community and saw where the cheapest surgeries were and set up transport. So they take about like 50 cats a week on a surgery transport about an hour away just to get them fixed and brought back. So they basically handle everything. Now, internally, we push a lot over there, but if somebody walks in and is like, I have this one cat that had kittens and I'll take it back if, we'll talk them basically into taking it back, and I'll hold it and I'll fix it and give it back to them. So we do like the one-offs internally, but mostly they handle the major 50 cats in a yard cases.
I mean, I'll add, every state's a little bit different. Like in North Carolina, like we can't do MASH clinics either. We can't do pop-up clinics. It has to be a dedicated surgery space. It has to be, inspected and licensed. And they're just starting to do clinic license for public animals, which is massive, but it's also still a process, right? And so I would say the majority of the partners that I know that are doing this, and I'm not even just for CCP, but for, access for the public and for even for their own shelter. A lot of them are driving an hour to an hour and a half and doing, like she's saying, 20 to 30 to 40 animals at a time, which is unfortunate, but they're doing the work. They're making it happen. People will often volunteer to drive transport. So if you got people that can't walk dogs or people that, yeah, emotionally can't come to a shelter, they will volunteer a lot of times to drive transport. It's also a minimal commitment. You only have to do, a couple of hours, a few times a month, whatever you want to do. But yeah, I would say that there are usually a lot of people out there that are willing to volunteer to drive.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would agree with that, that it's worth identifying the low cost clinics. And if you can get a lot of appointments to figure out transport, what I can say though is it's worth trying to put in the effort to make relationships with clinics in your community. I know at first, like we got a couple no's or like, yeah, we can fit in two a couple weeks out from now, but keep asking them and go in person, talk to them in person, explain what you're trying to do. Because like one of our clinics now that's doing the large majority of the surgeries we don't do on site, the first time I ever asked them said no. So be persistent, and definitely going in person is huge. So
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to follow them around their surgery suite, because the kind of offices that are going to be willing to help you and that like have the volume and the capacity, those veterinarians do not sit down. They don't take lunch. They eat a sandwich over a spay. I mean, they really are these kind of people. You've got to be willing to follow them around a surgery suite and just kind of like, oh yeah, this is great ceiling you have. Yeah.
and if you can
So,
train for donuts or
yeah.
something, that's a quick way to their heart too.
Yeah, especially with the staff, and the staff puts pressure on them to help more. And I was fortunate enough when I was at my last shelter that we only pretty much exclusively used local veterinarians, which is especially good because we didn't have anyone within 2 hours of us that was doing low cost. And all of our community partners. But my shelter before that was the opposite. We had 5 veterinarians in our county and none of them were helping, and it was really chiseling them down. And so we were also in the meantime driving that hour out. Um, but yeah, huge for in-person visits, Peyton. I'm love to hear you say that.
We have the same thing now. We had a local clinic open and she does most of the ones that are local. And so now it's gotten to the point where they do feral Mondays so they can walk in and drop off ferals. And then now we have just a vet office doing feral Fridays. So it's starting, and then we also have another local vet office that does them kind of on the DL, basically. They don't have the walk-in because they are a walk-in clinic. But I mean, it's at the point now where like it's starting to hit everybody and people are starting to see the value in it.
That's amazing. I love hearing that. So speaking also of volunteers, like being able to transport your cats for CCP or for TNVR, are there other ways that you utilize volunteers for community cat programming?
I have a bit I can elaborate on. So we serve as a very, very large area. It's 2 counties, 8 different cities. So something that has really, really helped us is kind of identifying advocates per community. So that way they're almost a liaison that can go and communicate with caretakers. They have a relationship with animal control and communicate back with us. We have such a large region that we obviously can't be on the ground every day. But those volunteers are out there, and like what I always tell my team is great volunteers don't walk in the door, they're made. So identify who's there for the right reasons, who could be a potential liaison for you, and that has been huge for growing our programs.
I love that. I want that on a sticker. Volunteers don't just walk in, they're made. Sometimes same with the doctors and all that as well, right? Tyler, are there other ways that you use volunteers with this program?
Well, so most of our program is only volunteer based because we use the 501c3 to do ours. So basically the liaison is between me and the president, and then I also know who her volunteers that she uses on the biggest scale. So if I have an issue that I need to handle, I message her and vice versa. We do have a kind of like a symbiotic relationship now where we actually take the kittens that they are doing. So we've started to kind of, they don't do intake, so we do the intake portion there. So we kind of have like a 2 week intake process for them that we've done. So it's kind of been growing and changing and moving pieces everywhere.
Yeah. I feel like oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, no. I was gonna say, I feel like volunteers are my favorite people because there's just endless ways you can utilize them to support this type of programming. And I feel like Tyler and Peyton both made really great points on how they could potentially be utilized. Um, Depending on your shelter setup, I've had them help in a number of ways. Sometimes it's transporting to and from clinics. Sometimes it's like the dog walkers, like bringing home, like I know around where they live and I have them bring home some like return some community cats on their way back home, knowing that it's there on their ride back, especially when we're short staffed or the community member who dropped the cat dropped the cat off isn't able to pick them back up. I've had community members help with canvassing before when I need more information in order to do a return, or I need more information to be able to trap at a identified targeted spot. And also I've trained volunteers to be able to be those community ambassadors that Peyton is describing, to be able to talk to the program to help us get more buy-in in the community. And I think it's absolutely essential to have those volunteers come from the communities because it does help so much with buy-in.
Absolutely.
I would also say that for us, just like general volunteers, we get a lot of volunteer because we are military here. So we get a lot of volunteers. So part of our like orientation process is when we end up in our cat intake, we kind of talk to them like, yeah, there doesn't seem like there's a lot of cats here, but that's because of TNR. And then we kind of built that into our orientation. So that way they're educated to go back and talk to their families when they ask a question, and it's just kind of, I think that was like one of the faster ways that we spread the information in the community too.
Yeah. And I think, also talking to the community about, we'll talk a little bit about friendlies as well. Let's talk about temperament, because I know that can be kind of a hard conversation to have with community members, maybe even your staff. But if y'all want to let us know how you've handled some of those conversations, or how you would handle a conversation around returning friendly cats back in your community.
I would say my favorite is using the statistic of cats going back home. That's truly like eye-opening to people when I say, like, if the cat comes here and you think it has an owner, it's like 2% likely to go home, versus 85% likely to go home if it stays where it's at. And so I think having that statistic in our pocket has really been eye-opening to like the staff and to the community that we tell when they bring them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I'll add on to that too. Something that we just say a lot is cats love locations like dogs love people, and explaining to them that it can be so traumatic to bring them into the shelter and relocate them. Even relocating them like a couple miles away, they're exposed to new predators. It's a completely different way of finding resources, food, water, shelter, and explaining them the harsh reality that there's not a great outcome if you are to relocate these cats. Also sharing examples of, we've had quite a few times where at first we were accepting some of the friendlies. Later on, caretakers would be like, that's my cat, like, why is it in the shelter? It's loved for, cared for, blah blah blah. So if a cat is happy, healthy, it's loved by somebody. It might not be your traditional house cat laying on your bed, but that cat is happy and healthy. So
Yeah, very much agree with that.
I'll also add that I use it in the like vacuum effect concept too, that it is also still a placeholder for keeping it stable. So while we understand it's friendly, it does belong to somebody, it's cared for, but it's still holding that place. So 1, 2, 3 more cats don't take its spot as well.
Yeah.
Such an important part of that conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, when it comes to talking to community members, I'm pretty similar to Tyler. I love my statistics. I like talking about like this is like if it is an own pet, we know that 30% of people let their pets be indoor outdoor, in addition to just the reclaim rate at shelters versus returning them, and how there's a much higher likelihood of them making their way back home if we return them through this program. Usually, if it's a community member who's bringing in a friendly cat and they're concerned, it's often a welfare concern, like this cat might be lost, in which case I think that talking point is really helpful. Other times it could be, well, won't they have like a better life if they live inside? But again, almost 1 in 3 people are letting their cats be indoor outdoor. There's no guarantee that like this cat gets adopted. That would be the case. But additionally, we want to maximize our adoption program. We want to utilize those adoption spots towards cats that don't have another option, where this cat, we're looking at it, it's healthy, it's happy, it has people that cares for it. It already has a home, even if we're not, even if we need to rethink what our idea of home looks like. Because of it has all its little cat friends, it has the people there that made it friendly in the first place. And I think that sounds like home to me. I have walked people back before who are like really they're like, just get adopted. And I've shown them like, look at all these cats we have to adopt that are looking for homes. This one already has it. And I think that taking that out of mind, out of sight, like component to it can wake people up in addition to those talking points. And I've done really similar things with staff that have hesitations on returning friendlies. I've said, like, let's ride along together. Let's return this cat together. And they get to see that cat get reunited with that caretaker that has poured all this love and care into that cat. And again, seeing that connection that they likely have with with animals that are in their lives, helps to make that connection really stick.
I'm a big fan of storytelling. I use a lot of storytelling when I'm out in the field. I like a good mix of stats and storytelling, because you don't really know if the person you're talking to is going to be more impacted by stats or storytelling. Everyone's impacted by one or the other. My mom had a cat growing up, after when I was like in my early 20s, that got trapped twice by animal control, and she didn't call animal control, despite the fact that I worked in animal control and that she personally knew our animal control officer. She was like, no, that cat wouldn't go in a trap. I'm like, yeah, no, they definitely would. And so anyway, so I'm a big fan of storytelling, for that sake. But then also, if someone's like, well, wouldn't they be happier inside? I'm like, you go ahead. You go ahead and bring that cat inside, and you tell me if you think it's happier. And also go ahead and put some new curtains on order. And just like Leah's saying, this is their home, right? And like a lot of times they are going to be happier outdoor or indoor outdoor. I've seen enough cats that have that home and that really prefer to be outside. And also, I don't know if anyone has ever tried to retrain a cat that's indoor outdoor to be indoor only. It is a nightmare. I've done it once, and I will never do it again. So
Yeah, I think one of my favorite little tidbits as well is that the litter box was the first commercial litter box was sold in the 1940s. So telling us that less than 100 years ago, cats were actually mainly indoor pets. So I think that's also something to consider as well. So yeah. We do have one question that came in chat. I don't know if anyone is familiar with this stat, but do you know about what a percentage of cats brought in for TNR have already been spayed or neutered? Are we finding that that's happening a lot, or does anyone have any input on that?
We occasionally will get some trapped, but identifying the ear tip, there's automatically release. And very, very occasionally you might trap a cat that isn't ear tip and fixed, but not even 1%, I would say, throughout our history.
I don't know official statistic, but I would say it's really low as well. I would say though it's also a good opportunity just to revaccinate the cat, and put your hands on it while it's, because most of the time you're also not going to know it's spayed or neutered if it's spicy until it's actually sedated. So while it's under, just making sure that it has a chip if you're able to do that, and make sure it's gets up to date again on its vaccination, and just an opportunity to put hands on it. So, and then go find another one to get that surgery slot.
There you go.
Yeah. Completely agree. And the longer you have a community cat program in place and the more you're doing education, the more people will know. And ear tip means that the cat is already sterilized. So like we want our officers to know that if they see an ear tip cat, we don't really want officers in general bringing in healthy community cats like for the sake of it, but especially those ear tip cats, they're healthy, they're fine. We're going to leave them and we're going to train the community. We see an ear tip, that means it's already fixed. And unless there's something going on, like medically, it likely doesn't need any of the services that the shelter has. And bringing it to the shelter will only result in it getting stressed and then it going right back. And so the longer we have the program in place and we're doing that education, the less I find that those cats are coming in the first place.
And that's the big reason too. I always push, especially with like local veterinarians that are not as used to the process as to why we ear tip, so that we don't that we only have to go through this again when we are, attempting to revaccinate. So that we're not stressing them out. We're not bringing in putting cats on their table that have already been altered. So, because some vets will have a problem with that. Some vets will struggle a little bit with the ear tip in the beginning, but once they understand that the benefits to it and how it actually serves the long term, they usually get used to it pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we have a couple more minutes before I close up this session. So I'll go ahead and give you all the floor if there is any additional advice or maybe just like the why you do CCP, if you want to give any final thoughts on how important this program is and the resources that they can utilize through best friends, that kind of idea. Put you on the spot.
As to the why, this is a program that benefits literally everyone. It benefits the cat, it benefits the complainant, it benefits the caregiver, and most importantly to me, it benefits the staff in the shelter. We know that without these programs in place, these cats often face non-life outcomes due to space and just lack of other options. And so getting them returned back healthy, happy, and sterilized to their homes is what's best for them. We know that with complainants, removing the cat does not resolve the issue, and we want long-term solutions with the community cat program in addition to providing complaint mitigation or deterrence supplies. We know that caregivers care about these cats. They care about these cats' health. They want them to be set up to live healthy lives outside, and sterilization and vaccination sets them up for better health. And of course, our staff, we don't want them inundated with cats, running out of space, becoming stressed, having higher turnover rates that come with having to face those space decisions. And having the community cat program in place allows for us to see those cats move back at happy and healthy and have more space and resources for the animals that are in the shelter.
I'm gonna ditto everything Leah said. That was perfect. The other thing I'll add to that too is like I really love conflict resolution. I've always loved conflict resolution. I love when someone comes in and they're here and they're just like having these major issues and they're so frustrated and you're able to actually help them solve that problem. Again, not just for the one they're having, but long term, and really working through that. That's always been really rewarding to me. It is these long-term solutions and resolving conflicts.
I would also ditto everything that was said too. I mean, once you get into it, it is very similar for why you do it, but I would also just add in, it comes down to, we also care about the cats too, and we care about the people. And so if we can find the right solution that truly answers the problem that they're having, then why not do that? I think that's part of what we're here for. That is why animal welfare is here. So I think that's basically the piece that I have. When I came to Onslow, the biggest complaint is there's so many cats. There's so many cats. And they just were like, I don't like seeing them get hit by cars, and all these reasons and lists of things that they were also, I would say, having some compassion fatigue and burnout with. And now we've answered that for them. And I think that's truly a testament to what we are here for.
I agree with everything that they've all said. My why is definitely to save lives and prevent suffering. And the why is because it's a solution that that works. We specifically had tried the other way for 30 years. The problem only got worse and worse and worse. We've been participating in TNR the past 2 years, and we're already seeing results. Some of the entities that 2 years ago were threatening very harsh and humane methods to get rid of all the cats are now in full support of TNR, saying that all the complaints are gone. But it works. That's the biggest why. It's what we're here for, to save lives, and that is the only solution that works for community cats.
Well said, everyone. I really appreciate you being here today. If anyone, we had one little final question, so I'll allow that to be answered real quick, but are spay incision tattoos getting more popular? Does anyone want to weigh on that real quick before I finish out?
I would say in my community, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, in terms of like a community cat program, nothing against the tattoo, but I would still do the ear tip just because if you can't always see a spay like in tattoo without handling a cat, and given that not all these cats are handleable, I don't want to have to take that cat to the shelter to figure out if it's been sterilized. So as a visual, the ear tip, I would say I would still require it even if you are doing the tattoo.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you. All right, well, I'm going to finish this session out. And thank you again, panelists, for being here today. We really appreciate all of your expertise. And if anyone has any questions for our panelists, their information, their contact information is in our Trello board. So you'll get an email after this with a link to that Trello board. It has tons of resources that we mentioned today. So please make sure to check it out and take advantage of those resources. We'll also have a link to the recording of this session. It's going to be uploaded as well to our network partner YouTube channel so that you can share it with the rest of the people in your organization or outside of it. We also have information about our Cat Life-Saving Fundamentals course. Just as a reminder, you could be potentially selected to receive a $1,000 grant to help you begin or expand your CCP, as well as a scholarship for that Cat Life-Saving Fundamentals course. So if you scan that QR code there, that's how you will apply for that grant and course. Please, 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 please do that. We would love to work with you and get you the opportunity for the grant and the course as well. It should be a really wonderful course. So please make sure that you apply for that. It is in partnership with the Southern Utah University, which is really awesome. Next week, we have the beginning of our next series, which is Accessible Adoptions, More Lives Saved. So it'll be all about adoptions. We will be exploring topics like conversation-based adoption, how to make your shelter the best place to acquire a pet. And there'll be more information about who we have as speakers and panelists for that series in that email that you'll receive after this. And as always, thank you so much for everything that you do for your community and for the pets in those communities. And if you're not a network partner, please make sure that you sign up for that. And we appreciate you joining us on this lovely Wednesday, and we will see you next week. Thank you, everyone.